Christmas arrives quietly. The calendar changes, lights appear on streets and screens, and familiar songs repeat the same promises of joy and togetherness. And yet, you are alone. Not because you planned it, not because you failed, but because this moment found you. In the middle of all the celebration, silence sits beside you, asking a question most people never stop to hear. Why this Christmas? Why this moment? Why now? According to Jacobo Grinberg, experiences like this are not random breaks in life. They are precise points where consciousness begins to reorganize. When the outer world becomes quieter, perception turns inward. What feels like emptiness is often the space where awareness starts to change. Most people are taught to fear loneliness. They rush to fill it, escape it, or label it as something wrong. But Grinberg discovered something rarely talked about. When social noise disappears, the brain does not collapse. It restructures. When stimulation fades, awareness sharpens. And when awareness sharpens, reality itself begins to feel different, deeper, and more alive. If you are spending Christmas alone, it may not mean something is missing from your life. It may mean something is being removed. Grinberg's research into consciousness revealed that emotional isolation often appears right before a major inner shift. The syntergic field, the invisible structure connecting mind and reality, becomes unstable before it reaches a new level of coherence. That instability is felt as silence, heaviness, or separation, especially on meaningful days like this. Here is a lesser-known truth. Many of the most powerful changes Grinberg observed did not happen during happiness or celebration. They happened during withdrawal, in moments when the mind stopped mirroring others and began observing itself. Solitude was not a weakness. It was a doorway. This video is not here to offer shallow comfort. It is here to reveal what this moment may truly mean. Why solitude appears on symbolic days, what the universe may be communicating through this experience, and how awareness transforms when you stop running from silence. By the end of this video, you will see why spending Christmas alone can mark the beginning of a new inner order, not a loss, but a recalibration. Welcome to Awakened Synchronicity. If you feel drawn to deeper insights into consciousness, perception, and the hidden structure of reality through the work of Jacobo Grinberg, subscribe to the channel and let's explore what this moment is really trying to tell you. Before we talk about the deeper meaning of being alone on Christmas, we need to question the story we were taught about this day. From childhood, Christmas is presented as a measure of happiness. The images are always the same. Crowded tables, smiling faces, warm voices. The message is subtle but powerful. If you are surrounded by people, you are doing life right. If you are alone, something must be wrong. This idea is not natural. It is learned. Society turns Christmas into a public exam of emotional success. Togetherness becomes proof of worth. Laughter becomes evidence of fulfillment. And silence becomes failure. Without realizing it, many people judge their entire life in a single evening, based on who is sitting next to them. Jacobo Grinberg would say this is not reality. It is conditioning. The mind is trained to interpret events through borrowed meanings. Christmas itself has no emotional value. It is a date, a symbol, a shared agreement. The suffering does not come from the day, it comes from the interpretation attached to it. Grinberg's work showed that reality is not shaped by events, but by perception. Two people can experience the same situation and live in completely different worlds. One sees absence, the other sees space. One feels rejected, the other feels available. The external event does not change, only the internal structure, observing it, does. This is why Christmas can feel painful for some and peaceful for others. The mind compares what is happening now with an internal image of what should be happening. When those images do not match, tension appears, not because something bad occurred, but because perception is fighting expectation. Society strengthens this illusion by repeating it every year. Movies, music, and traditions reinforce one idea. Happiness looks a certain way. It has a shape, a sound, a number of people in the room. Over time, this image becomes automatic. The moment Christmas arrives, the mind starts scanning reality, searching for proof of success or failure. Grinberg would remind us that perception is creative. What you believe you are witnessing, you help construct. When aloneness is labeled as loss, the body responds with pain. When it is labeled as space, the nervous system relaxes. The same room, the same silence, a completely different experience. Before questioning yourself, your worth, or your path, it is worth questioning the illusion itself. Not every form of joy is loud. Not every meaningful moment is shared. And not every silence is empty. Loneliness is usually described as the absence of people, but Jacobo Grinberg approached it from a very different angle. He did not see loneliness as something missing from the outside. He saw it as something changing on the inside. When people disappear from your immediate environment, distraction disappears with them. Conversations stop. Roles dissolve. Expectations fade. What remains is awareness, facing itself without filters. In this sense, loneliness is not emptiness. It is exposure. It is the moment when attention no longer has anywhere to hide. Most of daily life is filled with noise, not just sound, but mental noise. Opinions, reactions, memories, and constant social reflection. We learn who we are by seeing ourselves through others. When that reflection is removed, the mind becomes unusually quiet. At first, this quiet feels uncomfortable. But according to Grinberg, discomfort is often the first sign that awareness is turning inward. The energy once used to maintain social identity begins to reorganize itself. This shift becomes especially noticeable on meaningful dates. Symbolic days like Christmas carry emotional weight because the mind assigns importance to them. On these days, attention becomes sharper. The nervous system becomes more alert. The perceptual field loosens. Thoughts move more slowly. Feelings rise more clearly. Solitude that might feel neutral on an ordinary day suddenly feels intense. Not because it is worse, but because awareness is more concentrated. Grinberg observed that the mind becomes more sensitive when familiar structures are disrupted. Rituals break routine. Expectations activate memory. Memory amplifies perception. On symbolic days, consciousness does not operate on autopilot. It scans deeper layers. This is why solitude often appears during these moments. It is not coincidence. It is timing. The mind is more open to information it normally avoids. This is where Grinberg's syntergic theory becomes important. He proposed that reality is not a collection of separate objects, but a shared informational field. Consciousness interacts with this field continuously. Thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are not isolated inside the skull. They are movements within this larger structure. What you feel is not just personal emotion, it is information flowing through awareness. In this view, emotions are signals, not flaws. Loneliness is not a defect in your personality. It is a message emerging from the syntergic field. When emotional signals intensify, it often means the internal structure of perception is changing. The system is updating itself. Old patterns no longer fit. New ones are not fully formed yet. The result is a sense of suspension. Feeling alone often coincides with this reorganization. Familiar, emotional anchors dissolve. Old identities weaken. The mind loses reference points it once relied on. This creates a temporary void. Grinberg described this state as instability before coherence. Like tuning a radio, static appears before the signal becomes clear. The noise does not mean failure. It means adjustment. This is why loneliness can feel heavy without being destructive. The discomfort is not punishment, it is transition. The internal field is rearranging itself. Emotional structures that once defined safety or belonging begin to dissolve. But the new configuration has not stabilized yet. Awareness is caught between patterns, neither attached nor free, just present. From this perspective, Solitude is not something imposed from the outside. It emerges naturally when perception needs to refresh. The universe does not remove people randomly. Separation acts as a reset mechanism. Attachments stabilize identity. They keep perception fixed in familiar forms. When those attachments loosen, perception becomes flexible again. Grinberg understood that identity is reinforced through repetition. Seeing the same people, playing the same roles, responding to the same emotional cues, solitude interrupts this loop. Without constant reinforcement, outdated patterns weaken. The mind stops rehearsing the past. Awareness gains room to move. This is why people often disappear during periods of inner change. Not because relationships were wrong, but because they were aligned with an older structure of perception. When that structure begins to dissolve, resonance fades, distance appears. Silence replaces familiarity. What feels like loss is often recalibration. Solitude weakens automatic responses. Without external triggers, emotional reactions slow down. The nervous system becomes less reactive. Perception sharpens. Grinberg believed this state allows consciousness to access deeper layers of information. Layers usually drowned out by social noise. In this quiet space, awareness starts observing itself, not as a personality, not as a story, but as perception itself. This observation can feel strange, even unsettling. The mind looks for meaning, for validation, for connection, but none arrives in the usual form. This absence forces attention inward. The universe removes people first, because people anchor identity. They remind you who you think you are. When those reminders disappear, awareness is free to reorganize. Old emotional contracts dissolve. New possibilities begin to emerge, even if they are not yet visible. Grinberg's work suggests that perception does not evolve through accumulation, but through subtraction. Layers are removed. Noise is stripped away. What remains is clarity, waiting to be shaped. Loneliness is not the end of connection. It is the pause before a deeper coherence forms. Many people quietly assume that being alone on Christmas means they did something wrong. A wrong decision, a wrong path, a wrong version of themselves. Guilt appears without being invited. Self-blame follows soon after. Jacobo Grinberg approached this pattern directly and dismantled it at its core. He did not see the universe as a judge. He saw it as an intelligent system of calibration. Punishment belongs to human belief systems. The universe does not punish, it adjusts. When something in perception drifts out of coherence, the system responds by reorganizing conditions. Sometimes that reorganization looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like separation. Not because you failed, but because alignment requires stillness. Silence is not absence. It is precision. It removes excess, so the signal can return. Grinberg understood that guilt is a learned response, not a cosmic truth. The universe does not measure worth through social outcomes. It responds to resonance. When inner structures change, outer conditions follow. Being alone is often the external reflection of an internal recalibration already underway. The silence is not rejection. It is preparation. Within this quiet lies a hidden gift that few people ever experience consciously. Spending Christmas alone removes performance. No smiling for others, no emotional roles to maintain, no expectations to meet. There is no audience. And without an audience, identity softens. Awareness no longer has to manage impressions. It simply observes. This kind of solitude is rare. Most solitude is filled with distraction. Phones, memories, regret, fantasies. But conscious solitude is different. It is being present without commentary, without editing experience to make it acceptable. Grinberg saw this state as a doorway. When awareness stops performing, it begins to perceive directly. In this space, emotions are not acted out, they are felt. Thoughts are not followed, they are noticed. The self is not defined by roles or stories. It becomes raw awareness observing itself. This is not comfortable at first, but it is honest. And honesty in perception creates coherence. Grinberg's work emphasized that reality does not respond to desire the way people think it does. Wanting something does not reshape the field. Remembering does. Consciousness repeats what it knows, not what it wants. Memory structures form the blueprint through which perception organizes reality. This is why patterns repeat even when desire changes. Solitude weakens these automatic memory loops. Without familiar people and routines, the mind stops rehearsing old stories. Emotional memory loses reinforcement. Identity becomes fluid. For a brief moment, perception is not pulled back into the past. This creates space, and space is where new perception becomes possible. When you are alone on a symbolic day, memory has less to cling to. There are fewer cues triggering old emotional programs. The syntergic field becomes more flexible. Grinberg believed this flexibility allows new configurations of reality to emerge. But before they stabilize, there is weight. This is why the moment feels heavy. Not because something bad is happening, but because awareness is concentrated. When awareness spreads outward, emotions feel lighter. When awareness turns inward, emotions deepen. This depth is often mistaken for sadness. But it is not sadness alone, it is sensitivity expanding. Emotional weight signals intensity of perception. The mind is not numb, it is awake. Feeling deeply means awareness is present, without defense. Grinberg saw this as a necessary stage. Before clarity arrives, perception intensifies. Before coherence forms, awareness becomes dense. This density can feel uncomfortable. Thoughts slow down, time stretches, feelings linger. But this is not stagnation. It is absorption. Consciousness is gathering information, integrating signals, reorganizing itself at a level beneath language. Silence plays a crucial role here. Silence removes escape routes. Without noise, awareness has nowhere else to go. It turns toward what is already here: sensations, emotions, breath, presence. This is not punishment, it is invitation. Grinberg described silence as an open channel. When external stimulation drops, internal perception increases. The universe is not asking you to fix yourself in this moment. It is asking you to observe, to feel without labeling, to stay without running. Solitude is not a verdict about who you are. It is not proof of lack. It is an invitation to witness consciousness without identity, to observe without correcting, to feel without escaping, to allow awareness to see itself without names, stories, or judgments. In this space, something subtle begins to shift. The need to explain dissolves. The urge to compare fades. Presence deepens, and within that presence, perception quietly reorganizes, preparing the ground for a new coherence to emerge. Spending Christmas alone does not mean you were forgotten. It does not mean you were left behind or overlooked by life. According to the understanding of Jacobo Grinberg, it means something far more subtle and meaningful is taking place. Awareness is being refined. When the external world becomes quiet, perception gains clarity. When noise steps away, the universe does not move farther from you. It moves closer. What feels empty is not empty at all. It is open, and openness is not a lack. It is a condition that allows coherence to form. Grinberg showed that coherence in consciousness does not arise from accumulation, but from alignment, from removing excess, from simplifying perception until awareness can recognize itself again. This is why solitude can feel strange, heavy, or unfamiliar. The mind expects stimulation. It expects reflection through others. When that reflection disappears, awareness is left alone with itself. But this is not abandonment. It is intimacy. It is the rare moment when consciousness is no longer distracted by roles, expectations, or borrowed meanings. The universe does not communicate through punishment. It communicates through adjustment, through silence, through pauses that feel uncomfortable only because they are unfamiliar. Spending Christmas alone is not a judgment on your worth. It is a signal that perception is shifting, that old structures no longer fit, that a new internal order is quietly forming. Grinberg believed that reality responds when awareness becomes whole, not busy, not divided, but present, and presence often arrives when there is nothing left to perform. No one to impress, no story to maintain, just awareness observing itself without resistance. If you allow this moment to be what it is, without labeling it as wrong, something subtle begins to change. The need to escape softens, the urge to compare fades. Silence becomes less threatening, and within that silence, coherence begins to assemble itself naturally. So if this message resonated with you, pause for a moment. Do not rush away from this feeling. Observe how you feel right now, not to analyze it, not to fix it, just to notice it. This simple act of observation is already a shift in awareness. If this video helped you see solitude differently, if it softened the weight of this moment even slightly, support the message by liking this video. It helps this perspective reach others who may be sitting in the same silence, asking the same quiet questions. And if you want to continue exploring consciousness, perception, and the hidden structures of reality through the work and insights inspired by Jacobo Grinberg, subscribe to the channel Awakened Synchronicity. This space exists for moments like this. Moments when awareness is opening, moments when silence is speaking, moments when the universe is closer than it appears.